Hello, joyful creators, and welcome to Once Upon a Storybook. We are looking at true angel stories from the book In the Arms of Angels by Joan Wester Anderson. And today's story is entitled A Blessed Place. And the things of this world will grow strangely dim in the light of His glorious grace. And it is from the hymn, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus. Marcia Wood left her home one May afternoon in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, to pick up her husband. He worked in Cherokee, and Marcia had made the 10-mile drive hundreds of times. She used Highway 19, a 2-lane curvy road with steep drop-offs, which is also the connection to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The weather was beautiful, and she was enjoying the scent of spring flowers as she approached a sharp curve and braked. Nothing happened. Looking down, Marcia realized that her brake pedal had fallen off. Panic hit, and I tried vainly to gear it down. There was a camping area just ahead, Black Rock, and perhaps she could ease into that spot. Instead, the vehicle accelerated. I blew my horn and I flew around approaching cars. It's a miracle that I didn't hit anyone head on. Marcia's mind raced. What could she do? The car was going faster and faster, and another sharp curve was approaching. Without warning, she slammed head on into the side of the mountain. I crashed through the windshield and then bounced back into the car. It seemed like a dream, but it was all too real. I realized that my left leg was dangling and it must be broken, but at least no one else had been hurt. She needed to lie down, and she sank sideways into the passenger seat. The car seemed to be full of light. Was she unconscious? Was she dying? Hands cradled her head, and a sweet female voice behind her spoke. Lie still. You're badly hurt. Marcia realized she was still in the car, her feet against the driver's door, her head hanging out of the open passenger door. Then a man with the most beautiful black hair and beard pulled open the driver's side door and began to examine her leg. She heard him talking, apparently on a phone, to the paramedics, advising them to get to the scene quickly, saying that Marcia was losing a lot of blood and had possible spinal injuries. The woman behind her spoke to the man, who was apparently a police officer. Don't give her a ticket, she said. This wasn't her fault. She did everything she could to stop the crash and not hurt anyone. She mentioned the broken brake pedal and other pre-crash details. In a daze, Marcia listened. How did this woman know so much about the accident? And where had she come from? Suddenly, in the midst of her pain, Marcia was filled with joy. This woman must be her guardian angel. I tilted my head backward, taking a chance with my spine, but I had to see her. The woman from the waist up came into view. She was lovely, with beautiful blue eyes and a blonde hair and hands that made you feel that everything was going to be all right. I will never forget the sight of her. Paramedics came, and eventually Marcia reached the Cherokee Indian Hospital, where she was examined. She had life-threatening injuries, including a broken leg, nose and teeth, cracked ribs and sternum, and a bruised heart. The doctors decided to send her to the intensive care unit at Mission Memorial in Asheville. Suddenly, Marcia felt herself being lifted out of her body. I looked down and saw them working on me. Then I began to look around, and there were angels everywhere, and a glorious light. It was peaceful, warm, and joy-filled in that place, and Marcia did not want to leave. But the light spoke, telling her that there was more on earth for her to do and that she must go back. Marcia awakened on the table. Her heart had stopped, and hospital workers had restarted it with the electric paddles. But I knew that the Lord had done it. My time was not yet. In fact, when Marcia reached the Asheville hospital, she overheard personnel phoning her family members. They did not expect me to live until daybreak. But as I lay there, I knew they were wrong. The voice I had heard had told me that I had more to do. As the weeks passed, even Marcia's physician said that her survival was a miracle. Later, officers at the scene told Marcia that the rear end of her car was half on the road, half dangling over a deep ravine. With the car at that angle, no young woman could have stood or knelt outside the passenger door to hold Marcia's head. There was simply no ground there to support anyone. What, then, did the bearded police officer see when he got to the scene? And why did he easily fling open the driver's door when it took 4 men and several crowbars to pry Marcia from the wreckage? These are questions that Marcia has never been able to answer. But I believe I saw one and possibly even 2 angels at that site, she says today. When people think of angels, they think flowing robes and halos. But in the Bible, they also look like ordinary people. Why not today? It's interesting to note that, like Marcia, the majority of those who have undergone near-death experiences say they've encountered angels along the way. Apparently, these wonderful beings attend more journeys from this life into the next, no matter whether the transition appears peaceful or traumatic to those left behind. For example, monks who live in the monastery with the recently canonized Italian priest Saint Pio often heard heavenly music drifting through the halls but could not identify its source. The priest matter-of-factly explained that the singing came from angels who were escorting souls into heaven. On another occasion, a British researcher spoke with a woman who had sent her 6-year-old son upstairs to tell Grandpa it was time for dinner. The boy returned, reporting that he could not open the bedroom door all the way because the room was filled with angels. When his mother went up to check, she found that Grandpa had just died. As far back as 1892, the Swiss scientist Albert Heim, who studied death and near-death experiences, concluded that the process of dying is far more frightening to onlookers than it is for the dying themselves. It seems that despite the circumstances, the death experience begins with a sense of well-being and soon culminates into a feeling of ecstatic joy. While watching the events of September 11th, the songwriter Dave Allett was particularly sorrowful over those who had fallen or jumped from the buildings. How had they felt? What terror had gone through their minds? Suddenly, Dave heard song lyrics in his mind, somehow assuring him that these people were not aware of any pain or fear, that instead angels had surrounded them. Dave used the lyrics to write the song Hand in Hand. As hand in hand we leave this life together, hand in hand as angels lift us up upon their wings, I hear them sing. And the world seems far away as the darkness turns into the brightest day. Such observations can bring much healing to survivors. As we mourn, especially victims of crime or accidents, we can believe that at the end, angels shielded them from the violence and chaos and brought them to a place of safety and love. This spiritual encounter has never left me, Marcia Wood says. I truly look forward to the day when I can again enter that blessed world and not have to return. Well, thank you for joining me for this Once Upon a Storybook as we continue reading angel stories. I hope you enjoyed Martha's story that she shared with us today, titled A Blessed Place. And until next week, stay safe, be joyful, stay crafty, and make your own joyful creations. See you again soon for another story. Bye.